So last night, Christian Cage made his AEW Dynamite debut. Now, at last Sunday's AEW Revolution event, it was revealed that Christian Cage was the company's big mystery Hall of Fame worthy signing. Cage came out to the ring, signed his contract, and made his way back to the backstage area without saying a single word. While on last night's edition of AEW Dynamite, Christian Cage was supposed to talk with AEW announcer Tony Schiavone, but before he could come out, AEW World Champion Kenny Omega, Impact Wrestling Executive Vice President Don Callis, and the Impact World Tag Team Champions, the Good Brothers, took over the ring. Omega and Callis cracked some jokes about Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston, which eventually brought Eddie Kingston out to the ring. A brawl then went down between Kingston, Moxley, Omega, and the Good Brothers, which led to Christian Cage coming out to the ring. Omega was alone in the ring as Christian talked some trash with the champion. Omega then offered a handshake. Christian passed, and Omega took a swing at him. Christian ducked and looked to drop Omega with the unprettier, but Callis pulled the champion out of the ring to safety. Now, Christian then picked up the AEW World Championship, gave it a good long look before walking to the back, potentially setting up a future feud between the two. Now, this is certainly interesting. I think when we spoke about Christian Cage making his debut, being revealed as the mystery signing at Revolution on Sunday, obviously there was lots of discussion whether it was disappointing, whether it lived up to the hype, whatever. I think that discussion's gone now. Christian Cage is in AEW Dynamite, in AEW, that's it. When it comes to the segment last night, I thought it was well done. I think it's very interesting that he's been set up to be facing Kenny Omega straight away, because that's what it looks like it's going to be, isn't it? When would that happen? You would think it's probably going to happen at a Double or Nothing in May, which makes sense. Of course, you have to remember that Kenny Omega's schedule has to be booked very carefully at this point. And what I mean by that is, of course, in April at Impact Rebellion, he's going title versus title against either Rich Swann or Moose, whoever is the Impact World Champion and the TNA World Heavyweight Champion at the time. Now, it would lead me to believe, and again, they have to be careful when they announce this, because if they announce that Kenny Omega is going to be facing Christian Cage at, say, Double or Nothing in May, if they announce that like next week, it tells you the result of what that match at Rebellion is going to be. I know they can frame it as, well, whoever wins at Impact Rebellion is going to be facing Christian Cage at Double or Nothing, but in reality, everyone would know that's going to be Kenny Omega. Now, I've always felt it was going to be Kenny Omega anyway, full transparency, and it is going to be Kenny Omega. I have no doubts in my mind that Kenny Omega is going to be the AEW World Champion, the Impact World Champion, the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, and the AAA Mega Champion. I mean, he's calling himself the Bout Collector, so they're going to follow through with that storyline. But it's certainly interesting that Christian Cage's first feud in AEW would be with Kenny Omega. Now, I'll tell you why I think that. First of all, I mentioned when Christian Cage made his debut on Sunday that one of the names, and some of the names that you think about him facing off against when it comes to AEW, one of those names, of course, is Kenny Omega. He's arguably one of, if not the best wrestler in the world in terms of some people's eyes, and he's certainly a professional wrestler that so many people want to face off against, and having him on the AEW roster is a significant pull to have people join the company. Chris Jericho, right? When Chris Jericho went to work for New Japan, or went to work those New Japan matches, the first one he wanted to face was Kenny Omega, because Kenny Omega is that big a wrestler, he's that big a star, and he's that great a worker that these legendary figures want to face off against him because they know they'll have a fantastic match. And obviously with Chris Jericho, it's slightly different because of the Winnipeg connection. But Christian's Canadian too. I know he's not from Winnipeg, he's from Toronto. But still, that Canadian vibe, of course Christian would want to face Kenny Omega. And but prior to a couple of months ago, you would have said that's never going to happen. You would have said Christian versus Kenny Omega, that is a dream match. And my definition of a dream match, I know can sometimes differ from some people. I'm one of those people that, to me, a dream match shouldn't be able to happen, if that makes sense. A dream match should be a match that can only happen in one's dreams. So it's going to have to take place between two people that are different generations or are retired or in different companies, all that kind of stuff. But certainly, a couple of months ago, Kenny Omega versus Christian would have been a dream match. The interesting element of how they're going to do this, of course, is that AEW is very strict when it comes to rankings, isn't it? And those singles rankings. And we've had situations before for certain stars. One that comes to mind is Miro, of when people were questioning Tony Khan, the AEW president, and they were saying, well, why isn't Miro being involved in the main event title picture? Why isn't Miro being involved for the AEW World Championship when he should be, and all this kind of stuff? And Tony Khan's response to that was, because we take wins and losses seriously, and to earn an opportunity at the AEW World Championship, you have to get to the top of the rankings. And by getting to the top of the rankings, you have to have an excellent win-loss record. You have to compete in multiple matches, have multiple victories in AEW. And he said the only person that was able to overcome that was Brian Cage, because the way that he debuted, it was in the ladder match at Double or Nothing last year, nearly 12 months ago, was that by winning the match, he earned himself a future AEW World Championship opportunity. So that's how they got around it that time. But it's not the case with Christian. So certainly, if they're going to go towards having Christian Cage facing off against Kenny Omega, Christian's going to have to wrestle at least 3 or 4 matches to earn that right to get up a win-loss record good enough to challenge for the World Championship. But frankly, is 4-0, is that enough? Is 4-0 enough to be facing Kenny Omega at Double or Nothing in May? I know we're currently in March, and probably how many weeks away are we from Double or Nothing? Like 6, 7? Maybe something like that. Maybe a little bit longer. Maybe about 6 or 7 weeks actually. So between now and then, if he literally wrestles every single week, which he might, I don't know if he will, but he might, he gets up a 7-0 record. Is that enough? Again, I don't know. It's going to be interesting because, look, I'm a big fan of the ranking system. I think it does add legitimacy. I think it does add logic. And I think it's an interesting way to book your matches and know that, okay, this guy's got this record, but we want to do something with him in the future, so we've got to build up the record, all that kind of stuff. I think that's really interesting. And I think it's certainly a way for AEW to differentiate themselves from the WWE. So I'm a fan of the ranking system, and I'm a fan of win-loss records because it prevents you doing 50-50 booking, which WWE, of course, is notorious for. If they, counted wins and losses, if they tracked them in WWE, you would see a lot of people having literally 7 losses, 7 victories, all that kind of stuff, and 1 million no contests and all that kind of stuff. So I like that. I like that in AEW. But you've kind of built a rod for your own back when in the past, when you've justified not putting people like Miro and other names in the main events by saying, look, they need to win matches, they need to do this, they need to do that. Then to have Christian come in and go straight into a World Championship picture, you're going to have the same people saying, well, didn't you say this before? Aren't you contradicting yourself here? Now, obviously, I know the way around that is, well, it's Christian, he's a legend, but then you start to alienate talent from other talents. And even if it's just in the sense of storyline purposes, you still alienate talent, and you're still telling your audience a subtle message that these legendary figures, these older people, which is going to be the criticism of bringing a 47-year-old Christian into AEW, is you're bringing in ex-WWE names that are in the twilight days of their career, and you're still pushing them into the main event. You're doing the same mistakes that WCW and TNA did and all that kind of stuff. You are going to alienate yourselves from your audience and your talent if you say, well, they're more important. They don't have to adhere to the rules. They can go straight into the main event. So that is certainly going to be interesting as well. Just in terms of the storyline, how do they get around that? But I do think it's going to look like, they don't shoot these angles for no reason. You would assume that we're going to get Christian Cage versus Kenny Omega probably at Double or Nothing. That's the next big pay-per-view. The build to Double or Nothing started last night, didn't it? So it's going to be a fantastic match. Talk about a big main event, massive main event, and it's going to be a fantastic match. Now, obviously, the only real action we've seen Christian in is the Royal Rumble, and he looked fantastic there. I don't think there really should be any question of, can Christian still go? Of course he can still go. Look, he's been medically cleared. If you watched him in the Rumble, he looked fantastic. And the real exciting thing about having Christian Cage in AEW, if you ask any of the AEW talent or any talent that's worked with him in WWE, I know there are some talent on the AEW roster that have worked with Christian in the past, whether it's Cody Rhodes or John Moxley or anyone that's worked with Christian Cage before, they say that he has one of the best minds for the business. I think Cody Rhodes and John Moxley have called him a genius. And there's no doubt in my mind that someone of the caliber of Kenny Omega, who can have a great match with anyone, when you put someone in there who is a fantastic worker, who does have an unbelievable mind for the business like Christian Cage, it could be a classic. It really could be a classic. So I'm really excited for that match. I think it's going to be fantastic. Again, my issues with it would be, how are we going to get there? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's where your storytelling gets involved. And if AEW can tell a compelling story and a logical reason as to how Christian Cage would sort of jump the line, as it were, and get to that AEW World Championship opportunity before someone else, that could be really interesting. And also, you have to think about it as well. As I mentioned, when it comes to Kenny Omega, he has all of these Impact Wrestling commitments coming up. I mentioned the match at Rebellion for the Impact and TNA World Heavyweight Championship and the AEW World Championship, title versus title. Talk about someone that has a huge history with Impact Wrestling. That would be Christian Cage. Christian Cage, when he went to TNA Wrestling in the mid-2000s, had arguably some of the biggest single success of his career. Now, I know you're going to say, well, he won World Heavyweight Championships in WWE, and I know you can't take that away from him, But look, let's be brutally honest here. WWE never did, and I don't think they ever will, consider Christian to be a main event singles champion. They just never will. And I know he's had the world title twice, but look at those reigns. The first one, he won the title at the ladder match at Extreme Rules, was at 2011. Just after Edge retired, beats Alberto Del Rio. Big moment, you're thinking, finally Christian made it to the top of the ladder, literally and metaphorically. We're going to get this big title reign. What happens? SmackDown TV tapings 2 days later. I know it aired on, was it Thursday at that point? But 2 days later, Christian loses the World Championship to Randy Orton. Now, eventually, he wins it back in the summer of that year at Money in the Bank, that famous Money in the Bank pay-per-view of CM Punk, John Cena. Also saw a world title change too, with Christian winning the World Championship. He won it by disqualification due to a pre-match stipulation. He couldn't even defeat Randy Orton. They couldn't allow him to defeat Randy Orton as this heel. And I know you're going to say, well, he was the heel. He's the heel. That's how he should win the title. Yeah. But the title reign itself, that lasted a month. It was fun. But he lost at SummerSlam, and that was it. And that evidence alone, and Christian, when he moved to Impact Wrestling in the mid-2000s, he moved because he realized that he was stuck in the mid-card, and he was so over in WWE that period of time. He really was. He had the great entrance music, he was with his peeps, and he had Tomko as his backups. Listen to some of the reactions. In sort of 2005, listen to some of the reactions Christian gets when he comes out on Monday Night Raw. I mean, it's ridiculous. He was super over. At one point, he feuded with John Cena just as Cena was drafted over to Raw in 2005 because he was over. He was really over. And I think he realized, and he was getting frustrated, and he went, you know what? I'm a little bit burnt out as well. I'm stuck in this mid-card role. That's how they see me, obviously. I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to prove I can be a main event singles star. So he went to TNA and he did just that. And I know it was a smaller company, but he had some fantastic matches and feuds. He had the Christian Coalition with AJ Styles and Tomko. He had matches against Jeff Jarrett, Samoa Joe, Kurt Angle, Sting, all that kind of stuff. And he thrived. And eventually he goes back to WWE thinking, look, I've proved my worth. I've proved that, yes, in a smaller company, but against top-tier talent like a Kurt Angle, like a Sting, like a Jeff Jarrett, like a Samoa Joe, like an AJ Styles, I can be a world champion. I can be a main event level guy. He goes back to WWE and it's more of the same. He gets, initially, I think he was actually meant to be revealed as the attacker, Jeff Hardy's attacker, at WrestleMania 25, that whole storyline when it ended up being Matt Hardy, brother versus brother. Initially, that attacker was meant to be Christian. So talk about working with Jeff Hardy, that'd have been a featured spot. But instead, because plans leaked out, they actually switched that, and instead he was moved to ECW, and he became the ECW champion. And that's a mid-card title. That's a mid-card title in WWE, and he was exactly where he was before. So when it comes to moving to AEW, like I spoke about previously, I don't blame him. I don't blame him, because if you keep making the same mistakes, and if you think that, you know, what's the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing and expecting something different to happen. And I think that would be the case with Christian. He realizes, look, this is my last run of my career, however long it lasts, 3 years. I mean, he's 47 years of age. I would assume he'd probably retire around 50, probably somewhere around that. He realizes, look, I've only got a few years left. I'm going to make them count. I want to be in the main event. I want to wrestle. I want to have great matches. I want to control my own destiny. I want to control my own character. And I can do that in AEW, so I don't blame him for that. And having matches, again, I mentioned the lure of having Kenny Omega on the roster, bringing people over. He obviously looks at people like Kenny Omega and goes, oh, the match I could have with Kenny Omega. And there's no doubt in my mind that Christian Cage versus Kenny Omega is a massive match. It's a main event, pay-per-view worthy match. I think it'd have a lot of buzz and people would be really excited about it. Now, the way to build it, again, is the interesting elements of it, because you've got the ranking system, so he's got to have matches to get to that level of having a world championship opportunity. But then the issue might be of, would it be worth saving Christian Cage's first match to happen at the main event of Double or Nothing? That feels a lot bigger, and that would be a reason to watch the event. But again, then you come into the logic of, but how does he really earn that title opportunity? That's interesting. And of course, as I mentioned, when it comes to Impact Wrestling, because of the history he has there, you can't rule out possibly a Christian Cage appearance in an upcoming episode of Impact Wrestling, possibly an Impact Rebellion or something like that, after Kenny Omega defeats Rich Swann or Moose and has all of these championships, the AEW World Championship, the Impact World Championship, the AAA World Championship, the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. As he's celebrating, how great would it be to see Impact, an Impact legend like Christian Cage, his music hit, and him standing there once again in the Impact Zone, confronting Kenny Omega, maybe hitting Kenny Omega with the Unprettier and holding up the AEW World Championship as the event goes off the air. That would certainly be a twist people don't see coming at Rebellion and make the event seem even bigger. So there's a lot of exciting things about it. Again, I'm interested to see how they get there, but However they do, it's obviously going to be a fantastic match. But of course, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Kenny Omega possibly facing Christian Cage for the AEW World Championship in the near future, possibly at Double or Nothing in May? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about AEW, Impact Wrestling, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, get the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.